Hello, I'm Aaron Strout from WCG, and I'd like to welcome you to our first live episode of Live from Stubbs, coming to you from the Gemalto Lounge. It's a banner day. And actually, it's apropos that our guest today, Philippe Benitez, who is the VP of Marketing for Gemalto, is our first guest in this series, brought to you by Stubbs and now Gemalto. For folks that don't know about Gemalto, and I think it's a fairly well-known company, maybe you could give us a little primer on what does Gemalto do, Philippe?
Sure. So Gemalto secures the lives of billions of consumers worldwide with devices that they carry in their pockets but don't necessarily know that they carry them, such as SIM cards for their cellular phones, allow them to communicate, devices within the iPad, for example, that connects devices to the network, the U.S. passports, identity cards, and so on and so forth, and payment cards, of course, is what I focus on.
So no small order. And before we jump in, I'll let you jump in, but I want to announce you today so we don't forget you on the sidelines. Kyle Flaherty, Breaking Points Systems, not Solutions.
You almost got it. That was good.
Yeah.
Well, Philippe, you talked about payments, which is what your kind of coverage is, etc. In terms of security and the movement towards payments, what are you guys kind of seeing at Gemalto? Is that moving to a more secure way, certainly around mobile payments?
Yes, most definitely. Actually, we're witnessing a huge transformation of payments in the United States. The U.S. is migrating from magnetic stripe cards to chip payment cards on the one hand, and migrating from traditional plastic card payments to mobile payments as well at the same time. So, in 2012, we're seeing those two huge transformations happen in the payments world, and that are both going to improve the security of payments for U.S. consumers.
Right.
So speaking of payments, we talked a little bit in our prep about near-field communications, NFC, and I've been hearing about it for, 18 months at least, and it feels like it's always still a year off in the future. Now, is it a security thing? Is that what's retarding the development or the adoption of that?
Right. It's not a security thing that's retarding the adoption. I think, first of all, it's a complex new technology that has a lot of moving parts that all need to come together for the service to become mainstream. And so on the one hand, we were seeing no phones available. Right? NFC was for a long time called No Phones Coming. Now we have phones available. We have the networks coming available with ISIS that is planning on doing a pilot program in Austin and in Salt Lake soon. And we have some of the payment infrastructure, the acceptance, that is beginning to come online. So a lot of things have to come together for mobile payments to become available, and it took a while for all that to happen, but it's here now, within the next 6 months or so.
So removing ourselves away from kind of the phones and the technology part of it, what about the consumers themselves? Are they ready to make that move, specifically in the United States?
Right. I think they are, most definitely, because the penetration of smartphones is above 70% in the United States already. Consumers here are pretty tech savvy, and I think that having this technology, the payment feature available in the phone, just as a standard functionality, will drive the use of it. Okay, I don't think that it's something that takes a lot of adoption or a lot of education to be able to use. Simply tap your phone on the point-of-sale terminal just like you would have tapped a card or swiped a card in the past.
Right.
So let's take a step back, because speaking of mobile security, and I know you focus on payments, but I think a lot of people forget how easy it is to get at someone's phone, and they forget about not only the payments aspect, but just how much data we have on there. Maybe a few tips or suggestions on, without creating a 50-character long encrypted, multi-character password, what are some things that people can do to maybe keep themselves a little safer on their phones?
Sure. So one of the simplest things people can do is to be aware of the privacy settings of many of the mobile applications that they have on their phones that can broadcast information about their whereabouts or their purchasing habits or whatever other types of personal details that they might not want to have exposed. Another thing that they can do is set PIN codes very simply on the phone. That's a standard feature. I have it on my phone, and that prevent someone from picking up the phone and then making use of the
And that's
application
not
and other
a
information.
0000 or
Exactly.
1234.
Which I believe is the most common
That's right.
password for a
Yes,
PIN.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you were mentioning something earlier that I
Well,
think
McAfee had a study that showed that 53% of Android users don't even know they can set a password PIN for their phones, which is a huge concern, which gets me to kind of, I think you mentioned education and the importance of that. Like, how much are you guys doing in terms of actually going out and educating the consumer that mobile payment is, you said it, it's no different really than giving your credit card to that strange waiter at the restaurant.
Right. Yeah, in the with the transformation of payments, you will no longer be giving your card to the waiter and having that card disappear from your site. With this transformation, what you'll see is more what you've seen in the rest of the world, which is the point of sale terminal will come to you at the table. You will tap your phone or dip your EMV chip card and then pay at the table where you're sitting. So that will change, and Gemalto really works in the background, providing the fundamental security technology that makes all of this possible. We do the magic that makes all this happen, but we're not really in the forefront. The education is really coming from the brands, from the banks, from the mobile operators.
So we didn't talk as much about this in the prep, but I do want to, because I'm always curious, I'm a sci-fi geek, the biometrics of things, right? How much does that play a role, and is that something that could be a solution where it's, either it knows your fingerprints or it knows your, does a retina scan? Is that something you guys think about, or is that anywhere that the future is going?
Yes, that's part of our research and development efforts. Biometrics are a big possibility for payments for identification as a complement to another type of device that makes two-factor authentication, right? So most definitely we support biometrics. That's not something that I've seen widespread in payments, but there are some experimental uses of biometrics in payments, but not for the immediate future.
Yeah, I think the two-factor part is critical to what you just said. You mentioned ISIS, you mentioned some other things in terms of banks, and there's so many players that have to kind of work together, if you will, which brings me to the question of standards. How important have standards been, especially with NFC? I mean, you and I were talking about this a little bit. How important was that to getting all of this adoption moving and making this, quote-unquote, the year that this actually moves forward strongly?
I think it was the fundamental enabler of making all of this happen. The standards that we're talking about are called EMV, which are a global payment standard that's accepted around the world, and that the U.S. had not adopted until very recently, when Visa and MasterCard announced that it was time for the U.S. to, upgrade its MagStripe infrastructure to this technology. So the EMV, the underlying EMV technology on the card side is the same technology that's securing the mobile side.
Okay.
So I think we have time for two more questions. Related to that, should the credit card companies be nervous about the fact that they're going to now have a more secure way to pay? Because you don't have to let that stranger disappear with your card, right? Take the carbon imprint. And theoretically, with things like Square or whatever, then more people can now actually become a player because they're not on plastic, right? And so the restaurant doesn't necessarily care who it is, per se, as long as you get that.
That's a question. I'm sure they're concerned. And all of the different alternative payment schemes that are available. But I haven't really discussed it any further with them.
And I think that's where the two-step verification and things like that, two-factor, will help, I think, for those people. So, okay, let's assume this year is big for NFC, big for mobile payments. I think all three of us agree on that. What's next after that? What do you see? What are we going to be talking about next year when we're sitting here talking?
I think what we'll be talking about is the more widespread adoption still of mobile payments. It's still a very recent technology, and coupled with additional services that the mobile platform enables. We've heard of the coupons, the instant rewards, location-based services, which you're an expert in, correct?
I'm passionate about them. I'm not sure about expert.
He's an expert.
Very good. So I think we'll hear about all of those services in addition to the payment.
Cool.
Great. Well, thank you. We have Philippe Benitez, who's the VP of Marketing for Gemalto, and this wraps up first session of our episode live here from South by Southwest at the Gemalto Lounge. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about some barbecue and music. So thanks for listening in.
Thank you.
So welcome back to our second session of Live from Stubbs, here live from South by Southwest in the Gemalto Lounge. We are talking to Philippe Benitez, who's the VP of Marketing for Gemalto, one of our sponsors here. This gets to be the fun part, not that mobile payments aren't fun.
Come on.
They're a lot of fun.
Great.
But we're going to talk about something that's a little more germane to both Austin, your headquarters, as well as South by Southwest, and that's barbecue and music. Although I do think we want to talk a little bit about South by Southwest.
Well, I just had a question because, and it kind of, if you watch the first episode with Philippe and ourselves, we started talking about
Kyle Flaherty, by the way.
Kyle Flaherty, breaking the systems.
WCG.
Yeah, we really got to get better at that,
I know.
Well, we introduced our guest, and that's pretty much the most
We
important thing.
have the little blips that come up too, so you should be able to see them right
I'm
here.
right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so quickly though, we talked a little bit about South by Southwest, the security and mobile, and everything seems to be growing here, which is great. And you guys have this gorgeous lounge here that people can come in and get product demos and all that kind of stuff. Why? Why do that at South by Southwest? I mean, what kind of spurred that?
Right. So South by Southwest has a huge attendance, obviously, a lot of influential people, bloggers, trendsetters, and so on. And what we're doing now in the mobile payment space really is consumer focused. It touches the lives of consumers. It's at the convergence of payments and mobile. And I think that what we wanted to do was to provide some more exposure to the audience about this upcoming technology and the benefits of it and what it's going to do for consumers in the U.S.
Great. And you guys also have a panel, I believe.
Yes, we do, actually. The title of the panel is Mobile Payments, Take a Lesson from the Credit Industry. And that's tomorrow here at the Hilton on the 6th floor, Salon FG.
All right, so if you're listening on the live stream...
It's tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Tomorrow morning.
Beautiful.
All right, which will be Saturday morning.
Correct.
All right.
So after you've gotten your barbecue on, so you live in Austin.
I do.
And you've had a chance, and we'll get into your background in a minute because I think it lends a different twist than we normally talk about in our barbecue section. But tell us a little bit about a few of your favorite haunts here in Austin.
Right. So I love the Salt Lick, excellent barbecue. Rudy's, Stubbs, of course.
And we didn't tell me he had to say he loves stuff.
No,
You said,
not at all. Not at all.
How about an off the beaten path? Do you ever do the food trucks? Like, are there any food trucks where you...
I have done, but not the barbecue ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done different types of food.
A little skeptical of the barbecue,
exactly.
the mystery truck.
You never know.
That's right,
But,
exactly.
yeah. So speaking of kind of world traveler, you've lived in several different countries. You mentioned that originally France, or originally Jamaica.
Yeah, born in Jamaica.
Born in Jamaica, France.
Grew up in Haiti
and
and so on.
Sure you've eaten barbecue in
I have.
X number of countries.
Exactly.
Take us through, for those of us who, are just Texan barbecue or just North Carolina barbecue or New England barbecue we were.
Barbecue elsewhere is done in a very simple fashion over an open fire in many cases. So where I was growing up in Haiti, we would get fresh fish from the fishermen. We would just bring them in. You pick your fish, and then they just roast them there. It's called barbecue over there, and they'd roast them on the open fire, and you'd have it with lemon very simply, and very delicious.
Right, I bet. Yeah.
So now that you're a Texan,
Yes.
you're probably eating it in the beef or a steak or beef or a pork format.
That's right.
Any particular choice that you like? Is it brisket, leaner, moist, sausage, all the above?
Definitely the brisket, extra moist.
Extra moist.
Extra moist.
Yes.
So that is my favorite, and the sausage, of course.
And are you a sauce guy? No sauce?
I usually like the sauce, not too much. Just a touch of the sauce with some of the onion, and that's about it. Very simple.
So you go old school.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, from the fish to this. Simple is usually better. So, speaking of Stubbs, obviously another thing at Stubbs is music. And it's another thing in Austin that one of the reasons that we all kind of live here. Tell us a little bit about, you have some eclectic music tastes, as we talked about earlier. Right. It's hip to you.
That's right.
So tell the audience a little bit about what you enjoy when it comes to music.
So I'm into swing jazz, and I like Marshall Ford swing bands here in Austin, for example, that I listen to. I like old school jazz, Chuck Berry. I like electro swing music as well. So all of
you
that.
said, I think, techno swing?
Techno swing, exactly.
So how does a boy born in Jamaica, lives in Haiti,
that was my question.
Now lives in Austin, Texas, get into techno swing?
I don't know. It happened. I like to dance, so I dance to the dancing scene here in Austin. And, that's the kind of music that they dance to.
So the other music, that's prevalent here, the country, the rock, that stuff hasn't. It hasn't infiltrated into your...
Yeah, the rock has country music also, but it's the swing that I really have.
Right, you go back to that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, do you listen to, I don't know, any of these fancy new technologies like Pandora or Spotify?
I do, absolutely. Yeah, Pandora's...
So what comes up exactly if, like, on Pandora you put in techno swing? Like, are there new bands that come up that you're not aware of, or is that how you discover some of your bands?
It's mostly DJs. I don't remember the names right now. It's European DJs that take out of copyright swing music, and then they add additional stuff to it.
All right.
And you can.
So they're mixing all that stuff
they
up,
mix
and
it. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in terms of, so how do you at this point? I mean, just kind of riffing off of Aaron's question a little bit, but do you find that you get your music from a Spotify or Pandora at this point, or do you also do you go back to the vinyl and all that kind of stuff?
I get it from Pandora, and I also just buy it from Amazon and download it. Keep it on my Amazon account. No, I don't do the vinyl. I'm not that old school.
Yeah.
I'm not that into it. Yeah.
But no BitTorrent or any of those
none of
non-secure ways to do it.
Absolutely not.
So, one of the things I would love to talk about, given the South by environment, or South by Southwest, is music, right? So you're obviously here for the interactive piece. I'm a little jealous of anyone that gets to stay through to music, because I usually don't get to do that after a marathon.
Right.
Will you take in any of the music while you're here?
Unfortunately, I won't be able to either. I have some travel coming up, so I'm like you. I get to do the interactive part and not the music.
Yeah, it seems like that's how it always is. It's very frustrating.
Too often, unfortunately.
I don't.
Well, and I've heard rumors this year that people like Bruce Springsteen and the Red Hot Chili Peppers are supposed to be making an appearance down
Really?
here. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Bruce just played the Apollo. No, tonight he's playing the Apollo for the first time in Harlem. Yeah, big deal. So just talking a little bit more, I mean, you guys have your panel, obviously. Other things that potentially you're looking forward to getting out of yourself personally from South by Southwest Interactive?
Or do they chain you to the booth and you can't?
Yeah. Are you not allowed to leave here?
I'm here just for today, so I won't have a chance to see a lot of South by Southwest Interactive. But yeah, it's mostly about making the connections, with the people, with entrepreneurs that are in our space, of which we met a couple today already, and seeing what they're interested in, right, in terms of the security. How does the security connect with what they're trying to do in social media and so on and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. We really appreciate your time, especially this is your first South by Southwest. You're one day here, and you're kind enough to share a half an hour of that with us.
Pleasure.
Much appreciated.
Philippe Benitez, the VP of Marketing at Gemalto, one of our sponsors. We appreciate you being on. Cal Flaherty, Aaron Stroh, and this is Live from Stubbs.